RD, not the RDC. Hey.
But I make a quorum.
Well,
No,
Count
I
on you.
was sitting in the middle.
Romac makes a quorum and he's across the street, so we got him.
You want to switch the name, please?
Where do you want to sit?
We're out of the fight. Just the door.
Close to the door so you can run.
We're gonna burn you out, aren't we? Yay!
Yay.
We made a quorum.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Take your pay, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
Mike, I'm Scott.
Hi.
I think we've met, it's been a bit, Tim, a bit.
Scott Pritchard. Scott.
I've seen you around.
Scott Hyatt.
Hi.
Mike Roman. Carl and Lacey Terry.
What were we talking about? We were talking about,
But Jim McGough, but then
oh my God, yeah. He's a character.
that guy who do the ins and outs, make stuff happen. He wanted to.
Well, he ran, so he, like I said, he was partner with my brother, and then he ran for Congress. You know, I lost the primary.
I didn't even know that. I just knew him
On the
from
iPad.
Oak or SSRF.
May of last year. So,
Okay, thank you.
Tim, there's some paperwork, I think, up there for you, that's just a copy. But with, where's the signature on it?
Okay.
Doesn't really mean anything unless you wanna frame it. So basically, we just need to tonight elect officers. Then we're gonna go over proposed rate study, which I hope everybody's comfortable with, and then just need you to vote up or down, with a recommendation to move forward to the town council. And then they'll do the first reading of the ordinance tomorrow, but then in July, that's when they'll have the hearing for the new rate. I'll get into the whole rate is because we're adding to a substation. But we'll wait, just in case somebody from the public wants to be here. I don't want to start before, then we get in trouble, somebody walks in, especially somebody who's wants to make comment on it.
So the Excel sheets, Scott, are these all done this year, or does what needs to be done?
Yeah, I'll go over that, but that's basically the yellow is what we're talking, is what the bond is for. That yellow is a spreadsheet that took a 15-page long-range plan, 15-year plan that was done by IMPA.
This is 15 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the yellow, the up at the top, you can see we've started on some stuff that's in progress under projects, projected start, and it says in progress in the 1, 2, 3, 4.
I see the other column here now.
Yeah, so that's Pelton Avenue,
I got you.
then the yellow is the bond. That's basically
It's a $5 million bond at
yeah,
5% for 20 years that way.
yeah. All right, yeah, I'll go over that here. 3 minutes, well, 3 minutes and then other business, and we'll get to it. Craig, on this spreadsheet, you have this spreadsheet,
Yeah, you know, it's, with,
this spreadsheet, the Hammond sub to 600 west, we're at 3 question mark.
mhm,
Is that's part of all this? Can't remember.
yeah. It's,
Oh,
it's in here, up above, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I know where, I know where. Yep, it's, should say 675, right? Not 600 west. We said we wanted to go to 675. Okay, so.
Yeah, but, yeah, him had written 600 west on there.
Yeah, I'll change
This
that to
is
675. Okay. Here, I'll give you this. You give me this.
Not as, this is just curiosity, I don't care.
Mhm.
Is reading more utilities and Baker Tilly more taxes or?
We're shifting everything to Reedy. There's certain things that Buzz Chrome will still do for us on the electric side. He calculates the
The energy cost adjustment, the tracking factor.
tracking factor. So,
He's that consultant guy with Manual.
yeah, character, old guy.
Yeah.
I worked with him for years.
He used to do our rate studies. He's done a couple. rate
Yeah, he did the last rate study.
Right.
But just, it was a collective decision between town council members, clerk treasurer, to consolidate under one financial advisor. Just because we were so scattered all over the place.
You've got outside utility place out west. And my place up in the UP, my light bill up there, they have a fixed, it's called facilities charge. That's for their maintenance and all there, it's $24 every month, plus your kilowatts.
Yeah, we have a fixed fee too.
His ours is like $9.
Yes, not the
We
present.
have a facility charge, that's what we call it, and there's a science to rate making, that you
Yeah.
have a charge like that that kind of is capturing certain things like investment and all that, so it's a fixed charge, so everybody's paying the same thing,
Yeah.
even when they're not using power or whatever, but
Yeah.
ours, we tried to keep ours under $40, this year it's going out
Pretty weird,
It
about
is,
$40, $41.
He works for a
Nice.
Nice Star.
so I remember that.
it is now. I
No, I
know,
think-
I knew it was in the, I'm looking at it somewhere over there.
We're electric, yeah, we got water, wastewater.
I was
ran
reading.
electric.
You're in the wastewater business
We
too?
are now. Yeah, I'm the CFO, so I live these things, like, that's why I'm here, is great now. We've asked Hancock County Commissioners for a small territory. We're all about economic development, that's why we're doing it, because we've got.
So he's gonna rip into my presentation.
This guy, Tim is.
Like you are.
No, I've, you know what, I get it, I mean, this could be a very short meeting, because I think last time I was here, I knew you had two options, and option two is the one that
Yeah.
got in front of us, so it's like the 6.5.
Yeah.
But so for you, Tim, we're just trying to meet a need where there's not.
Oh, it's just like
Utilities.
the food plant out there, we're gonna spend a bunch of money here. And we haven't replaced it in 27 years out there.
I didn't know you were on the Fall Creek. That's good. We should talk sometime, because,
Yeah, give me a call.
yeah, I will, because I'd like to.
We have so much development going on, we'll go double the plant in the next 5
We're so far away from, we've got 125 wastewater customers. Probably 10 million in investment.
Hmm.
But as a co-op, we're able to kind of leverage some other things we do and be able to do that. But again, it's trying to meet a need that I think they say 70% of Hancock County doesn't have access to public water or wastewater. So where we're encouraging development, there isn't any public utility, so
You gotta run on, we gotta run lines or everything.
well, very slowly. We've acquired a couple assets. We bought, you guys know who John Salas is? Owns the campground there right off 70 by the village. So he had a little pack, we own like 3 package plants. But we're Hancock County gave us some ARPA dollars and we built a sewer main up 200 west from 40 all the way 300 north. They're putting in a, and you guys in Hancock County, they're blowing up over there. So we're trying to, we're edging that way. And you know that too, yeah.
We got 3,000 homes.
We don't.
So that's you guys running that line up 200?
200 west, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and somebody's paying for
Sewer.
it though. So we wouldn't done ourselves.
Sewer.
Sewer main, yeah. So we got water that comes from the west
Yeah.
to that corner to 200 west.
You know, our influent flow at the plant has stayed almost constant about the last 7 or 8 years. So they've shut off all the rainwater. And groundwater.
yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
They've kept graphs of that. And they kept going like that. Now it's, even though we're only averaging like, so now we're on average like 100 new customers a year. It's astonishing.
It is.
I thought it'd be like that.
Till Ingles gets done.
Yeah. That's fine. I mean, it's open in business for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you wanna start the meeting since I think you're the only closest thing to a holdover?
Holdover, huh?
I don't even know what the old officers were, to tell you the truth. Were you on it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just looking at the minutes so Tim's the president of the board.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought,
You're the president of this.
Yeah.
I resigned.
That's why your name
I
was.
know the first
I
one.
didn't know you were on it last year.
Yeah.
It's,
I've been on
Did we even meet
5
last year?
years. We haven't met since
So
May.
this, I guess, I'm looking at this on the iPad, the minutes from the last meeting, we have evidently had a quorum, and I know we didn't have a lot of meetings last year because they didn't need to, but it looks like, Tim, that this is the minutes that we're here to approve. That's the first order on the agenda, and you were the
Acting president then.
president, you were elected a year.
Yeah, I tried to get you out of it.
Thanks,
Tried to
Doc.
pull a fast one.
Tim Richard accepted the oil service utility rate.
I'm glad, Tim, you've been here as long as you have been, because things don't move without people participating.
So who's on now, Scott?
So,
It's Sloan, Matt on, but Matt's not showed up. He's got 2 appointments, so. I don't know about Sloan.
What's the one that said that his work schedule was changed?
Yeah.
He's no longer.
There might be some,
so George was the vice president, but he's not on the committee.
we are gonna have to do a water rate later this year, but we're waiting until the IURC is done on the ruling between the new, what would be the new water territory. And the hearing's tomorrow, but we don't get an answer for probably another 60 to 90 days.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and open the meeting. If I could have the board members review the minutes from the May 24th meeting. Take a motion for acceptance or corrections.
I'll move to approve him.
Thank you. Second, I have a motion to the second to approve the minutes as submitted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, Scott,
Election of officers,
election of officers.
guarantee every one of you's gonna have an office in the other.
Tim, I'll,
There's only 3 of
I'm gonna
them.
draw straws.
I'll nominate Tim Pritchard for chairman for president, just because that seems like the right thing to do.
I was gonna say, can we make it the same?
second that.
That's who was vice president, or was there,
George was last.
so we can't do George. Okay, all in favors of Tim becoming president, please say aye. Aye, those opposed. Okay, now we need a vice, or Scott, you wanna be vice?
Sure.
All right. I'll second that. All those in favor of Scott becoming vice president of the board, please say aye. Aye, opposed. And we need a secretary, Scott? Jennifer, we
Yeah.
need a secretary?
Yeah.
Mr. Romack,
Yeah, sure.
guess what?
I don't get to do anything. All right.
You get to count the money.
That's good.
I'll make a motion to nominate Mike Romack for secretary. Got a motion second for Mr. Romack for secretary. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, we have a new election of officers in place. Mr. Exley, new business, electric rate study.
Okay. We're live. All right. So let me just back up some steps and we'll start with the big picture. So we had IMPA do a long range capital improvement plan. It was based on projected development throughout the service area, which is basically the town limits and a couple places outside of it. But the current town limits, and they came up with something and I've consolidated. I could give you the plan if you wanted. It's 15, 20 pages. And if you, I do need this. And so I consolidated it down to this spreadsheet. If you look at the top, it starts with the project is Pelton Avenue, State Road 13, 700 West, South Main. Those projects are underway and they're being used right now by our capital fund to finance those. The one thing that we felt like we couldn't finance out of our current capital funds is the expansion of the Hammond Station and getting a second line across 69. We only have one. And so we need to expand the station. It's nearing capacity. Craig, remind me the statistics. We don't want to get to 80%. We're in the 70s as far as capacity, and we have no redundancy, which is just a reason alone, I think, to need to expand this substation. We do have a substation that we lease part of it, and that's the one by the water tower over here on Madison Avenue that everybody's familiar with. We do get fed lines from supplied electricity on State Road 38 from both ends. That's why we lost power when the Lapel had their tornado. But anyway, so what we're proposing is we're going to propose a $6 million bond, but stick with me for a second. So in the bond ordinance, that process will start with the town tomorrow, the town council. But we're only proposing or doing the rate study as if it's 5 million. The 6 million is just a case, right? We can always come back, but once we start the bond process, it would be hard to go bring it up to 6. So we just went ahead and set it at 6. But we're doing everything as if it's a $5 million bond, and we think we can comfortably do what we need to do at 5 million to expand the substation at this end, which is at the McDonald's, if I hadn't mentioned that. Named after Dave Hammond, who was the electric superintendent here for a long time. So that's the reason why we're doing a rate study and bringing that before you, is because we need to fund it. We need to fund this bond. And so we can begin the rate study, which is this in hard copies, looks like this. And the overview of this is that we looked at initially when Reedy did the study, they looked at 8.5, and that was increasing, could continue to grow our capital at about 5%, our capital fund at about 5% per year. So we also looked at some other things, and we decided that we could probably be okay with not zeroing out the capital fund, but not growing at the 5%, and bring that down to a 6.5%. So if you turn to page 1, that shows year 24, and then forecasted if we didn't do anything. In other words, if we didn't get a bond. So the one thing that I think needs to stand out that's important is if you go to power purchase, which is in the middle column, a 284, it's easier to find it in the middle column, the 284,000, that is an increase, and that is calculated based on history. However, let me say this, the IMPA has told us that the base, what's the term? The base the electricity we purchase will actually be less this year than what it is this year. So even with a 6.5%, that's a 6.5% on what we add to the base power that we purchase. Is that the right term? So they're not gonna feel a 6.5. It'll probably be more around a 4.5, right? So that's the one point that I think we ought to stand out and understand what's going on here. So I think that's important. So if you look at the bottom line, this is our forecasted statement of income based on if we did nothing. So that takes us, the notes to that, that brings us to page 2, and the notes are page 4. And you can see, or page 3. On page 3, you can see adjustment to increase in input charges based on history. Okay?
Scott,
Yes, sir.
why do you think we'll purchase less power this year than last?
The cost of purchasing will be less. Input's told us it's gonna go down.
Just the cost.
Yeah, just the
dollar.
cost.
We won't purchase less.
Yeah. We'll probably purchase more power, but
Right,
that's
right.
just because of our population increase. All right. Then if you go to page 4, now we're gonna add the bond at 5 million, and basically the bond payments, the annual amount is gonna be 389,000 a year. So over 20 years, on page 5, you'll see it's 5 million, 20 years, and assuming an estimated rate of 5%. Okay. So the important number out of this is annually, we gotta increase 389,000 to cover the cost of the bond. Now, if we go to page 6, you take that projected year-end rate, make our adjustments, and then what would be the new required cash flow. So there's a couple of things that stand out here. We increase the amount that goes to the depreciation fund each year, and that's based on a formula that was passed by a town council a long time ago, best practice. We weren't quite always meeting that. So we're gonna go ahead and try and meet that by formula. But the one thing that we're to bring it down from the 8.5 to the 6.5 is what our goal as far as increasing capital improvement. Since a lot of the stuff that we're gonna be doing, normally, if it wasn't such a big chunk, we would be doing it with capital funds. And since we're gonna have this bond, then we thought, all right, we'll see what it looks like for a couple years if we don't have a formula for how much money goes into the capital. And the way the formula works, first, what we do every month is revenues come in, we pay the costs, our operation costs, we pay off any debt that has to go, and then we pay off the pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes. And then a depreciation, a certain amount of the revenue goes into depreciation, and anything left after that goes into the capital fund. If we were private, that would be called profit, and it would be distributed to the owners. But in this case, Indiana law allows you to have a capital fund for obvious things, projected new improvements in the future. So depreciation goes to replacing old and our vehicles. Capital is for expansion, but that's what we're doing with this bond, so we zeroed it out. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
The depreciation fund, is that, again, I'm thinking about cash flow, is that
Yeah.
set aside somewhere, is that, or is it just a number, in
So
In the
Reed says that we should combine capital and depreciation fund into one. For them, they treat it the same. That's their normal practice. But I think Doug McGee started this as a way of just managing it. So depreciation is a formula, and I think it's right around a 10% of whatever our revenue is.
okay,
gets put in depreciation, left it goes to
It's like
capital.
a sinking fund then, kind of, sort of,
A
like
what?
a sinking fund, I call that.
Yeah,
Sinking
yeah.
fund to cover
Right,
the depreciation of the assets.
yep. Okay. Let's see what else.
I am just curious, where's the interest revenue come from? I saw that and I don't, is that,
That's just because we have it in a bank.
okay,
account.
okay.
Yeah,
Because I don't think I saw it before,
there's,
maybe, but
the capital fund is for electrics roughly, it floats around more than 2 million. I could look it up real quick.
that's okay. No, that's okay. I just,
I think it's in here somewhere. We'll find it as we go through this. It is, I've tried to keep the capital and depreciation fund about the same every year. I like to, for capital, I know it's at least 2 million. Appreciations. Million. I should have had that in front of me. Let me write that down.
Is it the depreciation fund that's on this 22,330,000?
Where you at? What page?
Page, what page it is, it's after the,
What page?
oh, no,
11, I think.
11,
it's, no, it's, 7.
7. Oh, yeah, okay.
Depreciation fund.
The
You're
page
right.
7. Yeah, so we're usually around, so I was right, 2 million and 2 million depreciation together, about 4 million.
Oh, you got your depreciation fund and your capital,
Yeah,
2.3 and 2.3.
year in 24. Capital was at 2.3, almost 2.4, and depreciation was 2.3. And it's been pretty consistent since I've been here. If you add the two together, same with water. So the next one is page 7, unless you have any questions. That puts us, anyway, to fill the gap, which shows a deficit of 747,000, and we'd need a 6.5% increase on what do we call it again? Not the base rate, but the tracking, right?
PR base rate, I think, yeah.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to go to 7? I know I'm going fast. So 7 is just a long range projection, which I would say after year 3, probably the accuracy falls off real fast. But the one thing that did catch my attention and makes me feel comfortable about using the 6.5% is if you look at cash reserve, it starts to build up. I think we're gonna be okay. And if it's not working out, then we can come back 18 months, 24 months from now and do a slight increase. Probably just to match inflation, right? That's usually why your capital's not keeping up, is because of inflation.
When was the last time you did a rate increase?
We're at, it's, yeah, it was in 23.
20.
It's close to 2 years. It's not quite, but it's been 2 years. And before that, it was 15 years. So we've only had 2 rate increases in 17. This is just the capital improvement sheet. It's another way of looking at what this is. The long range plan. That's more, the accountants feel comfortable doing that, but I wouldn't read much into it past year 26 or 27, 28. All right, now what does this do to the customer? This is on page 9. So the first at the top is at the proposed rate. You'd see the current, the charge per month, customer charge, or you call it the facility charge, 7.23 would increase Not quite 50 cents. And then you see the change in the rates. For the energy charge, and then so an average monthly bill would go from 141 to 151. So a $10 charge over what they'd see. A commercial service. See what happens there. Craig, what's the difference between a municipal, what's the difference on a commercial, municipal, and power service, do you know?
We don't have any power surge
Okay,
at all.
commercial is commercial. I don't know what municipal is. Okay, and then,
The rating thing.
yeah. So on our large power customers. Do we have large power customers?
We do.
How many of those do we have? Huh?
I do.
Yeah, it's just a handful.
Is that based on transformer size or? So I mean, how do you define your large customer?
Based on the usage of that.
It's their usage. Okay.
I'll be on the,
Okay.
we were just talking about the other day, Tracy was here, she could tell you more about that than I can.
But along the street here, for example, are they based on, they have a commercial rate versus a,
Yeah, commercial. Versus residential. Not much difference, look.
yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't look like there's much difference between those.
Well, so. A three-phase.
That's your base. Service charge is a lot higher than your 50.
Yeah. So that's the only difference is if you're using a three-phase. A good question. So a commercial could, if it's the same as residential if they're only using single phase. Here's some charges that we do for our security lights and street lights. This has just been updated. We've updated this information. It shows the 6.5. And then the supplementary information, it's just historical statement of income. So you can see what's happened in 23, 22, and 20 back to 21.
They didn't have to have a information as far as how we compare to other municipalities.
No, they don't. I could ask for that.
As far as rate compared to,
Yeah, we're charging $7, this monthly charge of $12.
I don't know about base rate to base rate, I know the per kilowatt hour charge, like. I can just call it.
I'll see it. We did. They didn't. Baker Tilly did ours for diesel waste. We're below average, we're cheap.
But you got to change that, aren't you?
Yeah.
And a big
Fort Wayne's like almost $100 sewer only.
It's the base rate.
I think,
And
Sulphur Springs is like 70,
Yeah.
Sulphur Springs, I think 70, 73.
yeah, it's gonna have to change for everybody. I think RD, USDA Rural Development, if they're saying that for us to loan you money, your rate's gonna have to be in a rural setting, probably $100 for them to get
You
you.
got so much capital coming.
Yeah, so it's, you mentioned that we hadn't had a rate increase in 15 years. You guys mentioned earlier the tracker, which is something that Buzz or somebody, and that's just, the way I understand the tracker is just a change in the wholesale power cost. It's a pass through. So our residents have been, even though we haven't had a rate change in 15 years, up until 2 years ago, that tracker has allowed the town to keep up with wholesale power costs, I think, to pass it through. I mean, so it's not like,
our rate increase 2 years ago, that did really was 0 off the track.
okay. And I think that's important too, because I think, rates are never politically popular, right? And so especially for the town council, I know, but yeah, I mean, I think, that's, you don't get a rate case every year, but you do raise your rates. You just have to, you do it through the tracker. And so I don't think that, if you hadn't done that, this rate increase would be like 30% if you hadn't been keeping up with wholesale power.
It's Fall Creek's $1 a year ago, thought we would cut their legs off.
Really?
I'm like, it's a candy bar.
So I have a different experience. And again, I know sometimes that's the value we bring to these things is we've had a consistent rate increase and we've tried to do it. We do a 3-year rate study and then we implement rates every year. We change our rates.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what IURC wants you to do.
and we haven't got any blowback. And we haven't had
Yeah.
one customer call. And
Yeah,
we've had bigger rate increases than this,
Yeah.
but I think if the customers are used to it,
yeah,
then that's, you gotta draw that line and say, hey,
yeah.
power's not cheap to provide and, I think you gotta raise rates. I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
Shame on Fall Creek, they should have been raising 35 cents a year anyway.
Yeah.
So, but they just kept going, and then the rate studies come back saying, well, you're okay, we didn't even raise it a quarter. It's costing the business.
So, but I know you had a couple options, I know, and again, I was here last time, so I kind of thought you might be going with the 8.5 but then you mentioned about phasing it in over maybe a couple years or something, but, so I think I heard what you said tonight, you're like, we want to go with 6.5 and then evaluate and see how cash flow is and.
Yeah, if
I
we're
think that-
able to hold steady with our capital fund.
Yeah.
Cause I said, most of our capital improvements are actually gonna be covered by this bond. Where normally we would take it out of the fund, so why not?
Is there a thing, I don't know, what is the bonding capacity? Is that maybe even a question to ask? I mean,
For here, I'm sure there's a max formula based on our revenues.
But if
For the
not-
town, now, when you talk property taxes, now you're getting into the serious stuff. Yeah, there is a capacity and.
but this 5 million is not touching that probably.
No, it does
Okay.
not count.
That was where I was headed with that.
The utility is a separate entity in a way,
I would not expect that you were
Right.
getting close or anything.
right?
One last question, I guess, so you mentioned the 6 million versus the 5, and I know the 5 million's the numbers that's plugged in, but explain maybe just for a second what that meant in my layman's terms, I guess, as far as,
So we're
Using
doing
six, but using five
the bond ordinance and the shopping of the bond up to 6 million.
okay.
But this, to be more conservative, right, to be fair to the ratepayers, we're saying 5 million.
Okay, so,
And then so if we ran into something that would vastly increase our expected cost for this project, all we would have to do is a rate increase, whereas to go backwards.
yeah,
And get a new bond ordinance, and go back to the market and get a new bond for 6 million. Now you're talking timelines. And the one thing that I haven't mentioned is that because of the projected time to get a transformer, which was up to 24 months, we went ahead and already bid for the transformers. Thank God the winning bid was also the lowest bid and also had the shortest lead time, and that was a year. So to be able to do this, we went ahead and did a cart before the horse and bid the transformer out. And I think it was a good move on our part because of tariffs.
Yeah.
All of a sudden
Well, I
tariffs
think-
are an issue and we've locked in the price.
so you want the ordinance to read 6 million, but the actual,
But this
Bonding
rate
is gonna
is
be a
based on 5,
okay, all right,
right?
okay.
Right.
So you need action on the rate or the ordinance or both?
Yeah, so no, what I need is just,
You
you
can vote on the
recommend,
ordinance to pass it to the council.
pass it to, rate. You recommend, what's the term, what, Ward 10, we use it all the time, like a planning commission, what is that term? Where we forward recommendation to the town council. Recommend approval.
Recommend approval.
Mhm. Yep.
Mike, you have any further questions or anything?
Yeah, I was curious, I'm more curious than anything else. You're gonna buy some extra land out there for that substation on Madison Avenue?
That's for station number. Oh, for on Madison Avenue?
Yeah, I was just
No.
reading down here. It said
This,
land
this is for the substation out by McDonald's. We own that 100%. The one out on Madison Avenue by your house, we lease space on that from Duke. It's a Duke substation.
Okay.
And it's not enough for redundancy. The only reason we were able to have power in town when lapel feed got wiped out in the tornado is if it had been a hot summer day where everybody's running the air conditioner, we would not been able to supply electricity to the town. Craig and Duke were able to make a switch, and so we routed everything through it. I mean, it was maxed out, I'm sure. But we routed everything for the feed. It actually, the one out here, Mike, by your house is actually fed. Do I have it backwards?
No, I think the typical feed is from the west, it used to be from the east, they switch it after the,
Yeah.
they decide they need to switch it, they switch it, so.
Yeah.
I used to know, but they switch it all the time now, I don't even know which way it's.
Regional waste gets fed both two directions.
Yeah.
In
Duke operates.
case we lose power, so we just went by a monster generator, we were paying for it. We were paying for that second feed.
Well, you want that. You want that. We want to harden, and we want our systems to be hardened that way. They can backfeed and so it's a smart switch.
Generator running.
Duke operates substation on Madison Avenue, we use one breaker out of it.
Yeah.
And, we pay a higher price for the electricity we get because we take delivery at 12.5 or 7.69.
Yeah.
KV, so, yeah. And with the expansion of our land acquisition, he asked about, that's for the substation.
We could also be talking about, Mike, is there's ground for substation 3 that was perfect, that was for sale. And we're a day late and somebody beat us to it. But substation 3 isn't projected until 2033.
Subdivision that, what's his name, something, and,
It's right where that land was, we were gonna try to go.
what's sold?
It was just past about 4 mile further west, yeah.
Was there a house on it then? Just
Next to it.
2.5 acres of vacant land.
They just put in that new gas regulator.
we got lift stations back, they're behind that one house.
Yeah, it's further west of that.
Like, what's his name, give us a little land?
Know anybody that's selling it?
Oh,
You want to sell your house for a substation?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't want to, but I suppose anything's for sale.
If the price is right.
Yeah,
sell it.
exactly right. It would have to be higher than the price is right, is what it have to be.
You're in the wrong location.
Yeah,
You're wrong side town.
yeah, I know.
Well, as you can imagine, just having one line where we've got all that space that could be developed, depending on what our farmers want to do. So,
Very well. Scott, any further questions?
I know.
Mike?
No,
Greg?
can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
So this will be more for the town council, but your questions are good. So we'll find out comparisons. Date of the last rate increase, I'll get the exact date. Was there something else that you guys came up with, a question that we weren't able to answer? Do you remember? Okay.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Done.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept ordinance number 2025-13 as it's submitted. Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor of 2025-13, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Ordinance passes on as town council. Any further questions or comments? Scott?
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
So we probably won't have a water work meeting next month because we won't have the results.
No, so what will happen probably with Waterworks, and this is important for the URAB also. So as soon as we know what our geographic territory is gonna be, then we're gonna do a long range study, which will be expensive because it will include looking for water. So there'll be some physical costs and not just engineering. And what we'll do is we'll model what our current system is, sort of like we did with the impact fee. Model what the current system is, look at projected growth, and then model it as if everything was populated, and then figure out where the mains need to be, where our water sources are gonna be, which that you wanna co-locate your plant there. Then that will dictate where your water towers will have to go, because we could be up to fully populated out in the water territory. We could easily be at 6 or 7 water towers, right? So the beauty of knowing where you're gonna run the mains are is when a developer comes to you, and let's say he's the first developer in past 300 west in our water territory, you can then do the cost sharing on the water main, and he can get reimbursed. And so we'll be able to, if his project is being fed by a proposed main, and his is 25% of what that main area, that main would serve, then he could get reimbursed for the other 75% if the development goes in within 10 years. So we'll be able to tell them right up front, if they come to us, it's in the water territory, whether it's in town or just outside of the town, but in the water territory, we'll say, well, this is where the main's gonna go. If you wanna build this, you're gonna have to build this main. And if anybody else develops in the next 10 years, then you can get reimbursement from them. Now, reality is, development probably will only happen on the edge of town. Go out this way, right? Who's gonna wanna put a subdivision that's 4 miles out, 3 miles out?
Data center well,
The data center.
that's what we worry about.
Yeah.
That's a real concern.
The data center, Hancock County.
Well, there, that haven't gotten squashed.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of interest in it. Part of the country, part of the state, even in Madison County, data center,
Data,
data.
what is it?
They're just like just a big building full of servers that has internet traffic and takes a ton of water and a ton of power.
Cool.
That's the problem over in Lebanon, Boone County.
Yeah,
because they
water cooler.
They don't have water.
Well,
Water cools them.
yeah, water cool, yeah, water. And that's what, yeah.
So they put it out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, that's where nobody wants them close, so that's kind of what they look for. Site, have site site selectors.
Big giant building with 4 employees.
One data center of the size that is kind of sniffing around in Hancock County would be the equivalent of our entire load for a whole year.
Yeah, we've had
And
them come.
Yeah, what were they gonna ask? It was 10 times what we do now.
yeah,
We had somebody ask,
the G&Ts don't even want, I mean, they have to build transmission
that's 10.
Oh, yeah,
There were people, so yeah.
and the Googles of the world, they have the money, but yet, how long can they, if something happens to them, I mean, you got to think long term, but.
I don't know what we would do for, water. I don't think we could supply.
No. Well, that's,
Or the power.
Power we could do, but they would have to build the transmission.
They can build their own line.
that's what they tell them, bring your own power.
line.
Huh?
A dedicated line, probably.
Yeah, they would build their own power, but then you're, that's what we worry about is then we're competing in the MISO market for that power, which, that's, then you're your competitor for getting power supply at a time when this country's losing generation and not replacing it with.
Dude.
You know what? So that's
the-
Scott's right. I mean, if it is the only answer and people don't,
Meeting it there, let's hope.
yeah.
So, Marine officers or naval officers, right? Marine officer, 30 years. If our US Navy can sit there and operate all these mini nukes